Hello and welcome back to Building on a Budget Models. I'm Thomas and this is the Mitsubishi Colt Galant GTO-MR in 1/24th scale by Hasegawa. Now firstly, it's important to look over the body. This was done in this orange plastic. Needed to seek out some of the mould lines and use these UMP sanding sticks to remove them. Before priming and painting, there was this small bumper part which went under here. And then also these louvers that go here just behind the quarter window. It's also a good idea to drill out the holes in the bonnet if you want to put the scoops in place. It was then given 2 coats of fine grey primer from Tamiya before I then went on to use this Ford Signal Green from Halfords, which is an automotive shop. I gave 3 coats of this and I'm pretty pleased with how it turned out. When that had cured for a couple of days, I then went on to the optional stripes. I went with the black ones here, but you've also got red. Now the side ones here are made up of 2 parts. I decided to start here because there's a little hole where they need to fit over the door lock. I put down some micro sol and then also used this wet paintbrush to try to get it in as the correct place. The rear ones have got a gap where a Galant logo will go later on. It's a good idea to do both sides before going on to this one that goes on top of the boot. That way you can line it up on both sides. I really like the look of this. I think the black and the green work really well. Wet cotton bud was used to squeeze away any excess moisture. I then painted the undercarriage firstly with the same signal green and then added details in black, both semi-gloss and matte, and also some iron on the gearbox and exhaust. Then this part of the exhaust fits together like so. That was painted in silver and then glued into place. Many of the undercarriage parts like these are moulded in orange, so you need to make sure to get good coverage when painting them in black like this one here. These are quite nice and flexible and they held in place quite easily. The rear wheels have got leaf spring suspension and quite simple joins to the drum brakes. Once I was happy with all of this, I used this Tamiya Detail Master set, used a bit of rust on the exhaust and also some gunmetal on other parts of the undercarriage, before then finishing it off with a little bit of black panel line accent just to add some dirt and shade. The suspension coils were done in red gloss, and then I also put the wheels, hubs and brakes together. These parts of the suspension shouldn't be glued so that they can be turned. The fitment of these pieces is all really good. It's then time to do the dash. There's a lot of detail that goes into the interior of this car. The dash was first done in a semi-gloss black. Then there's some wood trim and also this silver decal that goes over the Galant logo. Then did the dials, pushing them into place using a cocktail stick. Now the steering wheel is okay, but I have this Highlight Model Studio set of photo etch steering wheels. I decided to use one of these that closely resembled the steering wheel in the set. Snipped off the arms of the standard one, keeping the outer circle. Then once I'd painted the outside of the steering wheel in semi-gloss black, I superglued it onto the arms and then put the centre on as well. Pretty happy with that. Then used some of this maroon felt to add some carpets. the seats would have a kind of dark red effect to them, so I felt that this would work well. I put the seats together and test fitted them. The seats were also done in matte black, and then I used a lot of UMP strong decal solution to try and help these red textured sections get down into those grooves as well as possible. Also used a hairdryer for these. Gives a really nice effect. Centre console has also got some wood effect decals, and then handbrake and gear stick. Used some extra thin cement to glue these in place, and then a little bit of super glue to glue the carpets into place once I was happy that the seats were secure. Not sure how much this detail you'll see once the roof is on, but I'm pretty happy with how it looks. Used some Molotow chrome for some of the details, like for instance the door handles. I think that looks pretty good, and that's very simply slotted into place. I also used some chrome on the pedals just to help them stand out a little. I did the front and rear windows using the supplied chrome trim decals, but I wasn't happy with the ones on the side. So once I had left the clear coat to cure for 5 days, I then came back to it and masked off the edges of the doors to paint these window trims in silver acrylic from Revell. I was pretty happy with this. Tried to be very careful of the black decals though, just in case I tore them off. Excess was rubbed off with a cocktail stick, as you can see here. As the clear coat had cured for about 5 or 6 days now, I gave it a wet sand with 2500 grit. Tried to go side to side and up and down. And then once I was happy that that had flattened down, I used some Kent Models Hyper Polish, firstly with a microfiber cloth, and then later I went over it with some polishing pads and my Dremel, which unfortunately I forgot to record, so you'll just have to take my word for it. When using the polishing cloth or the Dremel, I tried to do side to side and up and down so as to not get swirl marks. Pretty happy with that. This was after about an hour of work with the Dremel. Now then I also had some photo etch interior parts. Some of these I felt were too modern, but I did quite like the look of this little magic tree, which I painted red. There's a little dome light that goes at the top to house the rear view mirror, and I used some super glue and attached the magic tree to that. Nice little effect. Now the windows all come in one part, and there's also the heated element at the back is part of a decal. This is quite a nice touch, but to be honest, I actually found that it was quite difficult to apply. In retrospect, I think it's better when a model just moulds this into the plastic. The scoops were done in matte black, and then I added the silver decals to the stripes. Headlight lenses go in really nicely. I used some foam safe super glue to fit all of these in. Then they go into the back of the grille really easily. I did the little GTO logo and the kind of chrome surround for the grille there as well. There's also these chrome strips that go onto the sides. Make sure you get these the right way up. There's advice in the instructions about that. These side markers need to be done in silver, and then pay really close attention to the front and rear lights, as the front ones should stick out a little bit, but the rear ones should be flush. Now for the tail lights, I used again some monochrome to do these surrounds. The rest of it was done in matte black. Now the centre of this should actually be body colour, but if you cover it up with the number plate, it doesn't really matter. I used some foam safe super glue here to fit the chrome surrounds that go at the back of the tail lights. The lights themselves were done in red clear from Tamiya. There's a couple of little notches to show you which way round these lights need to go. And once that's all in place, these slot in very nicely through the inside. I used a spare bit of sprue painted black and then with a little bit of red on the top from these Posca paint pens, and super glued those into place as little seatbelt sockets to go in the middle. For the rear lap belts, I used some sticky back velour with a couple of spare photo etch latches. Just crossed them over on top of the seats. Pretty good. The interior roof was painted in anthracite grey, and then I used a tiny bit of foam safe super glue underneath the sun visors and left that to secure for a few minutes. When it came to the wheels, I chose to do the main hubs in semi-gloss black. Need to remove these little burrs off the back. I used a little bit of Revell iron to do the hub nuts. Then used some super glue. The outside of the rim is from the chrome sprue, as you can see here. I really like that, the kind of two-tone effect. Tyres you need to remove the centres from, but they're all the same. And then there's a small kind of chrome bit that goes in the middle. There's optional decals that go on those. Now the front wheels here are male fitment. They go through the disc brakes like so, really easily. Whereas the rear ones need to go onto the drum brakes. First put in the poly cap and then use some glue to fit the drum brakes into place. And then the wheels are female fitment. I found putting the interior in made the most sense, even though the instructions didn't tell you to do that. Then put the floor plan in at the front first, and then I found a pair of tweezers was useful to very gently prise the bodywork around the edge. This wasn't very easy, and again I'd say that you need to be very, very careful here not to damage any of the paintwork or the exterior parts. It was then time to add some of the chrome, like the bumpers at the front and the rear. The front bumper though first needs these indicator lights to be put into place. These were painted with silver on the back and around the sides and clear orange on the front. The bumper's got pins at the bottom to fit the number plate. There's then other chrome things like this GTO badge and this Galant badge. You can use some black panel line accents to pick out some of the details on those, or you can just put a decal on top of them. There's also these MR decals, and I added a little bit of black to the exhaust pipes as well. So it shows you exactly where these chrome decals, chrome parts need to go. The wing mirrors are made up of two parts, one from the chrome sprue, and the arms need to be painted silver. They slot into place really nicely. Should lean over ever slightly to the side. I then decided to use some photo etch windscreen wipers. All of the photo etch parts used in this were bought from GP Modelling Shop. Now firstly, this part here needs to be folded. I used my photo etch folder like so. Try to put it in place and hold it into place using either tweezers or a craft knife. It shows you exactly where the creases are, and then I found that the craft knife was useful to just push that up, and they bent really nicely into shape. Then simply turn it around. Then to push down on the clamp before turning the dial to make sure that you get them in exactly the right place. And then give it a little gentle bend. You don't want to bend it too much, as that will weaken the part. There we are, I'm pretty happy with that. You can sand off any burrs using these kind of diamond files. Then the horizontal bar was super glued to that with some Gorilla Glue gel. And then I used some more of that gel to fit the wipers themselves. You could put a little bit of black paint or maybe some marker pen on the underside of the wiper blade to simulate the rubber, but I found that you couldn't really see this afterwards. I snipped off a tiny bit of this jeweler's wire, and then that was threaded through the hole at the end of the windscreen wiper using, again, a little bit of super glue gel. And a little bit more super glue gel was used on that to then secure it to the hole just below the windscreen. I didn't put super glue anywhere else on this as I didn't want to stain the paintwork or the glass. Pretty happy with that. I think it's pretty effective. For the number plates, there are several options, including these custom ones where you get to choose all of the numbers. I decided to go with the year it came out, 1971. Also thanks to Dave from Gluesniff Garage for telling me that my choice of the number 500 at the top is correct, because that means that it's a four-wheel car between 1.5 and 2 litres. There's then the radio aerial that goes on here. And there it is, finished. I have to say, I don't know much about this car, but I've really enjoyed building this, and I am pretty pleased with the turnout as well. Please do let me know in the comments down below what you think. There are also small chrome MR symbols on some parts of the cars, which I added the decals to the top of. Thank you very much for watching. Please do leave a comment down below, like the video, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and make sure that notification bell is hit to stay up to date for future builds. I'll see you soon.